More than 10,000 people in the UK currently need a transplant, and of these, 3 will die every day waiting for an organ. People from within the South Asian community are 3 to 4 times more likely than the general population to require an organ transplant, but within this group, there is a severe lack of donors. We went to Manchester Royal Infirmary, which has the busiest transplant unit in the country, to find out the reasons behind the shortage of donors and what is being done to tackle this problem.
Even I go from my bedroom to kitchen and I have to hold the doors to go there. I'm that weak.
My kidneys were failing and they were at a level where eventually I would need a transplant.
I was in very bad condition that time. So the people said, I was thinking that he will die now. He will not alive now.
The renal transplant unit at Manchester Royal Infirmary performs more transplants than any other hospital in the UK, but for patients from the South Asian community, the wait for an organ can take years. Dr. Susan Martin is a consultant clinical scientist and the director of the transplantation lab at the hospital.
The chance of you being offered a transplant will depend on how often a donor becomes available that's got the same blood group as you, or a similar tissue, or a similar tissue type.
Mr. Titus Augustine is the clinical director of transplantation and has specialised in the transplantation field for over 15 years.
There appears to be a problem with donors among the Asian community. There is a significant number of South Asians on the transplant waiting list, especially with regard to kidneys and also with the other organs. However, the donor rate among the South Asian population does not represent the number of people on the waiting list.
Currently, 16.9% of people on the waiting list at MRI are from an Asian background, but only 1.7% of donors between 2005 and 2010 were Asian. This severe difference has prompted a study by one of the staff members at the hospital who was inspired by her experience as a transplant coordinator. Agimol Pradeep's PhD research is being supervised by Mr. Augustine and the University of Salford's School of Nursing, and is exploring the views of Asian people to understand why they may be reluctant to become organ donors. The British Renal Society has awarded nearly £45,000 to fund the research, which they consider to be of national importance. Agimol worked closely with the patients who suffer from kidney failure and those on the waiting list who have to go through kidney dialysis treatment until an organ finally becomes available.
This mission is called hemodialysis mission. So when the patient's kidney is not working, that means all the waste products in their body does not come out as urine. So it means that they have to find an alternative to purify their blood. This has to be done at least 3 times a week for the patient, and it normally takes around 4 hours for one session to complete.
Agimol's study involves close work with GPs and consultants to educate and inform Asian people of the benefits of organ donation, with misinterpretation being one of the key factors behind the donor shortage. Dr. Mahesh Nirmalan is an intensive care consultant who has worked closely with transplant patients from all backgrounds.
I have not seen any person from any cultural or social or religious background who, when faced with the need to have an organ, would turn around and say, my religion or my culture does not allow me to accept an organ. So if it is religiously and culturally acceptable to take an organ when you need it, then it is simply inconceivable that that religion or culture can have anything against donating organs.
The hospital chapel is available for patients and visitors of any religion to worship, congregate with others and speak in confidence with their religious leaders. Sadiq Diwan is an imam who interacts with the Muslim patients.
You know, in my humble opinion, it has to a certain degree the doubts I personally had also, the doubts when I was doing this research that the people put to me. You know, I would definitely say that organ donation is something that we should definitely look to, because ultimately the greatest of good, you know, like the Prophet said that khairun nas مَن ينفع الناس. The best of people is the one who benefits the people the most.
And I'm pleased to say we're now joined by Agimol Pradeep, who is the transplant coordinator and researcher at Manchester Royal Infirmary, and Dr. Omar Masood, the transplant surgeon at Manchester Royal Infirmary. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Now that the study's underway, what have you found so far while you've been looking at it?
Obviously, the overarching aim is to increase the number of people going on the register, increase the number of potential donors. But to break this down, Agimol basically designed a questionnaire to get some feedback. And we were quite amazed that really there's a lot of myths out there about how the healthcare professionals or the NHS deals with people who are in that stage of organ donation, and how the process is actually done. And some of these things were enough to put people off the process, would put anybody off the process really. And it was because of a lack of understanding really about what happens at that stage, particularly within the Asian community. The thing that there are barriers like language barriers, cultural barriers, which maybe made it difficult for people to approach healthcare professionals and ask them what happens. We initially thought most of it was related to the religious and cultural aspect, but it's not the case. So it shows that there is work to be done, and that can be very useful in changing that kind of mindset amongst that population, but the population as a whole really.
Most of the studies are done in London region, nothing from the Northwest. I haven't seen any studies done in Northwest at all. So especially when we are talking about Northwest, we have got one of the highest Asian population in the Northwest. So why we are not dealing effectively? So that's something we are hoping to do with the study as well.
You've mentioned to me on a previous meeting that you have like weekly or monthly meetings with groups. Obviously you're going to be there talking about the pros of organ donation. Are there people who are coming to these meetings who are actively against organ donation?
People tend to have fairly strong views about this, but the people that we're initially targeting are those that haven't formed an opinion or are just in the dark about the whole process. Eventually it will progress onto a stage to face some of the more challenging things, but really it's one step at a time, and facing those people that are on the fence about this is probably a good place to start.
As we've seen, the most important people at the heart of this study are those patients in desperate need of an organ, and for many in the South Asian community, they will spend years on the transplant waiting list. This is what finally receiving an organ means to them.
This time I got a call in a month ago, and doctor said, this is a live donor, and you will go for the transplant. So then I got it.
Which was the biggest news for our family, honestly. And this changed our life, I believe.
Now, as always, we're interested in what you have to say, and we were tweeted by Pooja Bhardwaj, who said, I like to think that God forbid anything happened to me, I will help save others by donating. And this prompted a response from the NHS's own organ donation Twitter account, who said, that's the attitude, we must always consider those less well off than ourselves. Keep your tweets coming in to us at Quays News. As we've just seen, the stories of the patients who've obviously been directly affected by these illnesses and by the transplant procedure, how important do you think is it to get people's stories out there?
That was something that was very much needed. The views of the healthcare professionals are sort of the official views for NHSBT and everybody else, and they're pretty much agreed. But actually the patient experience is unique, and it's probably the most powerful message. And I think something that Agimol was very keen really is to get some of our patients who have been very kind enough to speak. And in fact we have had a huge response from patients who are very keen to want to get this message out there, to encourage other people to step forward really.
What we don't want to mix is that we are not here to say that this is the way it should be done, this is wrong, this is right. We are trying to find out what the public feeling about it, what is the problem. So that's why we done this questionnaire survey, and we're finding from them the issues, and then we are trying to tackle it in a different way.
Okay, well, Agimol and Omar, thank you very much for joining me today, and good luck with the rest of the study. For more information about the study, visit southasianorgandonor.org.uk. Here you can fill out Agimol's questionnaire or join the NHS Organ Donor Register.